Hi, and welcome to Web3 Unfiltered, the podcast that cuts through hype to explore what actually works in building modern businesses, AI tools, and emerging technologies. I am your host, Collins Odabi. We are living in an era where the traditional mode of software development is evaporating. For decades, the gatekeepers of the digital economy were the people who could write code. If you didn't have the capital to hire a massive engineering team, your idea was effectively dead on arrival. But the unfiltered truth of 2026 is that code is becoming a commodity. As AI begins to handle the heavy lifting of syntax, the real competitive advantage has shifted to the logic sovereignty, the ability to turn an insight into a functional or functioning product in days, not months. Today's guest is someone who has mastered this new reality. Our guest today is Dan Hafner. He is the founder of Dapper No Code. He helps founders and mid-sized teams turn raw ideas into functional systems and software without traditional nightmare of coding systems or custom coding. He doesn't just build apps, he builds growth engines that allow owners stay in control of their own infrastructure. Today, we are deconstructing the no-code playbook and exploring how we can use technology as a deliberate lever for our businesses. Welcome to the show, Dan. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Doing great. It's quite an intro. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. It's really great to have you here. It's an honor to have you here with us on the show today. Okay, Dan, I like to ask my guests first to talk about themselves, to just share something about themselves, their upbringing, how they got to where they are today. How did it get into the no-code logic, the no-code idea? Where did this all start from?
Yeah, I've been in this probably a lot longer than most people have. I would say that are just kind of getting into this. I started back in 2017, 2018 timeframe. And I kind of stumbled into it. I kind of had this entrepreneurial bug that had bitten me. I was working at a couple of different jobs as my wife and I were kind of moving around, following her job around, and kind of had an idea for a business I wanted to start, an app I wanted to launch. But just like you mentioned, I had a dead on arrival idea because I didn't know how to code and I didn't have any money to hire people. So one thing leads to another, and the next thing I know, I'm searching all the different pages of Google and find these tools that are, they say build your app without knowing how to code. And I start diving down this rabbit hole, and the next thing you know, I'm building apps and launching them, and getting my first app launched without having learned how to code at all. And I was able to launch it on the App Store and Google Play and get real signups and real money and launch a real business. And that was the start of this whole journey for me. And I've never looked back because I just kept building and honing that craft and turning that building of things into an actual business as well. So,
Wow, amazing, Dan. Really, really amazing. That you built your app with so much speed and in a very short while, I must say. That speed you're talking about, from just the need to build an app to building a working product, I think it's becoming the new baseline for success. In the old world, that would have taken a year of meetings and six-figure budgets, but you've essentially collapsed time. And this brings us to the reality of 2026. If you aren't shipping in weeks, you are falling behind. Why is that slow build model that we all grew up with now a death sentence for any serious founder?
I will say, I do think that depending on what people are trying to build, that you might need weeks, you might need months, depending on what you're trying to do, right? So I don't want to just have this blanket statement that everyone's launching things in a day, because I don't think that's necessarily true. But I will say that if you have a little bit of skill in what I've come to call thinking through the machine, how can I leverage this AI tool to get to the result that I want, right? It starts with the end in mind. Maybe you're trying to build a new CRM for your business, or a new invoicing tool, or a client management tool, or whatever it is. If you can have a very clear end in mind, that, again, kind of what you talked about, flipping that old model on its head. You know how hard it is to explain what you truly want, what you truly see in your mind to someone else? It's very, very hard, right? I always saw, I have a lot of clients who are very visionary people, and they can see the product in their mind. They can see what they want, right? And this happened 4 or 5 years ago as well. People that were very like, I know exactly what I want, and I want to hire you to do it. And it was always very hard to get exactly what they wanted. And now that barrier has kind of changed, because you can be the visionary and the implementer. You can be the person who can see what you want, what you're trying to build, and then also be the implementer, the person who actually goes and builds it, or at least uses AI to build this. So it really is just this brand new frontier that is pretty amazing, and it has really flipped a lot of things on its head.
Amazing, Dan. Amazing. It is, I agree with you, because it's really hard to convey what's in your mind, the product you have in your mind, to someone else's head, except the person lives in your head. Then the person will really understand what you're trying to build the way you have it in your mind. You are advocating for a shift where the founder is the one actually building. You become the conceiver of the thought, the idea originator, and then the operator and the builder at the same time. So this sort of leads me to the 90-day fast track. If you're not writing code, how do you actually verify that your app idea is worth building before you put any money or time into it? Or if I would phrase that better, what are the most common mistakes you see founders make when they are building a new software product for the first time?
Yeah, very good question. So this really applies to if you're building something that is not an internal tool, right? Kind of the things I mentioned before are things that are really just kind of facing for you, something that you're the private one user of this tool, or maybe there's a small team of you. Those are a little different because you've already validated the need for that tool, right? Now, if you're building something that's like a mobile app or a SaaS product that you want to have people sign up and use and eventually pay for, that's a whole different ballgame, right? So the main mistake there's really two. The main two mistakes I see people make are that they want to build the thing before it's actually validated, kind of like you alluded to, where I don't actually go out and talk to real people, or I don't get actual real feedback, or actually vet this idea against anybody except keeping it in my head. And I will say, there are a lot of people that will go to ChatGPT or Claude, or you name your AI tool, and they'll ask, hey, is this a good idea? And we all know that AI can have a bit of a bias, and it probably will tell you it's a good idea, right? Unless you tell it to be very, very brutally honest with you. So I don't think that is really a valid form of verification, because, bots are a lot of traffic out there on Web3, but people pay for stuff, So I think the first big problem is that there's really just, you haven't validated truly the need for this tool, even if you see a problem in a market, right? And the second big problem is overscoping. I think a lot of people, basically what that means is you're trying to build the version of Facebook or YouTube, take your pick, that exists today, rather than the version of it that launched originally, right? Look at any tool that was launched back in the 90s or early 2000s, or anything when they were early. They're a far cry from what they are today, because their technology has changed. They've put more time, they've put more money, they've put more effort into these things. The original version was nowhere near that, right? So I think people tend to overscope things and get way too ambitious out of the gate, and that can also ruin your momentum, because you're worried you're taking weeks or months to build and launch something when you could be launching it in a couple of days, or a week or something like that, if you just kept it very, very simple. So those are the two biggest mistakes I see people make.
So you're saying that they overbuild for a problem that they haven't proven yet. They usually get lost in the bells and whistles before the engine is even running. Okay, interesting. You advocate for scope discipline. How do you decide which features are actually going to drive revenue and which ones are just going to become maybe technical clutter?
Very good question. Yeah, a lot of that depends on obviously the type of application that you are building. And I will say, I don't think that necessarily every feature has to be a revenue driving feature, right? Maybe there is. It's kind of like an offer for anything else, right? When I buy a computer, for example, I'm not buying it just because of like the color of it. I'm buying it because of the processing speed, the size, the ease of use, the RAM, all those different things. There's an offer and a package pushed into that, right? So do the features complement each other well enough to validate, like, hey, this is an actual really good offer for either a free app or a small monthly subscription app or a one-time payment thing or whatever you're trying to build. So it's again, that's a very broad kind of answer, but depending on what you're trying to do, are the tools and the features and the things inside of the package that you're building, do they make sense? Do they flow well together? And does it all bundle itself in a way that says, yes, this is worth the money that I'm paying to be able to access this thing?
Interesting. Thank you so much for explaining that well. Why do most people misunderstand no code, and how is it actually being used today to build serious revenue generating software?
Yeah, I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, that was when I was talking about this kind of stuff, it was very different answers. So when I would always tell this before all these tools came about, it was just because you're building something with quote unquote no code doesn't mean that there's not code underneath it, right? Back in the I say back in the day, but there are tools still out there that are very usable, like Bubble or Adalo or Flutterflow, where you are building things kind of in like a Lego format, I kind of call it, right? You're dragging and dropping, or you're using pre-built components or templates to build these things, and they just kind of have snippets of code underneath that are running the whole show, right? You as the user building the actual application don't interact with code. You say, hey, add text here, or add a button here, or add a list here. You're not actually just in there writing code and doing that kind of stuff. Now, there's still code underneath that kind of powering all of those things, right? Now, in today's day and age, with tools like Lovable and Vibe Code and Replit and all these other ones that are out there, Base 44, whatever, it's now just a prompt-based tool, right? So you are just actually prompting the AI to then go over and write that code and do those things. So it's a very, very different, approach and story to the whole thing. But just because you are not actually, that's kind of why they call it no code, is the user is not writing any code or engaging with the code, even though that's happening underneath.
So basically, the user doesn't care if the app is being built on custom code or no code. They only care if it solves their problem. Right. Yeah, I guess this is where white labeling comes in. You've talked about it often. How does using a pre-built framework allow a founder to focus on the customer experience rather than the underlying plumbing?
Yeah, very good question. So, if I understand that correctly, that really what that ends up doing for you is it cuts out the need to experiment, right? You can use proven user experiences, proven systems and templates that have already been shown to work and create revenue and create downloads and create that success. So you're really skipping that whole process, right? Whether you're copying and pasting something or using a template or white labeling a tool, which is basically just taking their sticker off of it or their brand and putting your brand on it. It just empowers you to skip that whole process of how do we build this? How do we scope this? How do we do this? It's already built. You just pay a licensing fee to be able to white label something, right? So that can really just fast track your progress of, hey, here's what I'm going to build and here's where we're going to do it. And then you can just start making money right away.
Interesting. Do you really think this white labeling can work in any industry at all?
Possibly. I mean, there are in software, it definitely can work. I think, people do it inside of like e-commerce, right? I remember there was ways that you can basically take, like print on demand tools of people who are, you can kind of use different tools or systems out there to put your brand name on something else. I think I wouldn't say every industry, because obviously there are industries where people like something original is very, very valuable, right? But if you're somebody new, if you're just breaking into something, I think it can be useful and you can find at least initial success in it. But yeah, I wouldn't say every industry, but a lot of them, I think it would be able to be successful.
All right. Thank you so much. There are definitely industries out there that require originality and require a builder's touch, not just copy pasting products or designs or anything like that. So now everyone's talking about AI. How is AI actually changing the way you build these no-code app today compared to just a year ago or 2 years ago?
Yeah, pretty much exactly what I was talking about earlier. Like there used to be just more of that, using pre-built blocks or pre-built pages, pre-built components of things that you would then paste together, kind of go through and be able to build things. And it was definitely faster than having to write code. But now with the change in AI, all you have to do is prompt. All you have to do is tell it things, right? If you're in a tool like Lovable, for example, and you see a headline or something you want to change, you don't have to go in there and find, okay, how do I actually click into this element and edit this thing? And I don't know why this is not showing up the way that it needs to be. You can just type it in and click it and off it goes and it fixes it for you. Well, I mean, most of the time it fixes it for you. We all know that if you've used these tools before, sometimes it says it fixes things and it doesn't actually do it. But that's the biggest difference by far, obviously, is there's a lot more ease of just like actually talking. And sometimes you don't have to type, you can just talk into these tools and you can have them, make changes. But that's the biggest difference that's been happening.
Interesting. And AI keeps getting smarter every day and keeps making things easier every day. AI has become the brain that drives the body of the no-code apps. It's making the building process accessible to almost anyone and everyone. But that brings up the question of quality. In your view, what part of building a business or an app should we never let an AI handle?
Interesting. I have found, at least so far, I think you definitely want to have human oversight when it comes to anything payment related. Obviously, it's just a prudent thing to be able to do, right? To make sure your money's going where you want it to go. I think it's really good for strategy. I think that's a very useful thing that you can lean on AI for. I will say, as far as things that you would never want to have it do, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe this is just a personal preference. I would probably also tend to not lean on it very heavily for legal things at the moment. Maybe there are I know there's different tools out there. There's a lot of, legal specific AI tools that are coming out that are probably a lot better. But that's obviously something that, I would probably want to have human oversight on, at least just in my preference as of right now. Yeah, I mean, I think that those are probably the two biggest ones that come to mind. I wouldn't say maybe never have those things do that, but as far as my personal preferences, I wouldn't want AI to just do that stuff for me.
I think I agree with you too. I don't want AI handling my money. So, for finance and for legal aspects, the human element is the only thing that creates true loyalty and, well, keeps things in control most times. So, you've worked with founders across many different industries. What is the one unique insight you've gained from building apps for diverse sectors that most software purists miss?
Oh man, that's a that's a really good question. I would say that the biggest thing that people miss is, I think from my experience, I have found that there's a big fallacy of build it and they will come. I think that has been one thing I've seen happen over and over again with people that we've worked with. That just had everyone assumes that their idea is the next big thing. That their tool, their business is going to be the next global dominating thing, right? The chances are it's probably not going to be. Just to be statistically, prophetic about that is like, it probably won't be based on the statistics, right? So I think a lot of people try to wait for perfection, no matter what industry they're in. They try to wait to be like, well, hey, this is the life-changing thing. This is going to change everyone's life. This is going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread, right? And the chances are that it's not going to be. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that wildly successful for you to count it as a success, And I see that happen time and time again. I think people wait for perfection instead of just launching and getting something out there and getting feedback rather than just actually just going for it, and just being like, hey, I want to tweak this. I'm not quite ready. I want to get this together. I want to make sure that this is working, etc. You obviously want to put a working product out, but you launch messy and you figure it out on the way, I think is the best way that I've seen it work.
You launch messy and then you pick it up along the way. I think I should also apply that to my personal or day-to-day life. Yeah, I really should. And being that you've worked across diverse sectors, you must have seen the universal patterns of how people interact with technology. I think it's the human logic that matters the most. So, Dan, for someone listening who feels non-technical and perhaps even intimidated by all of these, what is the first small step they can take today to start building their own software?
Yeah, I think people just want to dive into these things. They just want to dive in to say, hey, I want to sign up for Lovable. I want to sign up for Replit and just start prompting and seeing what we can come up with. I usually say the best place to start is by just going to something like a ChatGPT, Grok, whatever, Claude, whatever tool you want to use, and just chat with it. Now, remember what I said earlier, don't take it as validation, as like, this is the tool, this is the thing. But I do believe that these tools, these large language models, these chatbots, are incredibly useful for brainstorming and for strategizing, right? Tell it to be honest, tell it to be, straight up with you, and just type it into there. And I think a lot of people get nervous about that stuff because it's like, oh, I want to make sure that my idea is secret, and I want to make sure I'm, not letting things out because of NDAs and all this different stuff. I promise you, your idea is not new. It's not something that's like, I've always heard it put, there's no such thing as $1 million ideas. There's only $1 million execution, right? So that's what I would say. Even if you want to just whiteboard some stuff out, if you want to take voice notes in your own phone about something, Just start by getting it out of your mind and into something that's actually physical, and then you can move forward with, okay, how would I actually pull this off by trying something, by getting something built, by going down that direction. So that's what I would advise.
Interesting. So one should essentially start first. Starting is the hardest part. But then I also think that the barrier has never been lower. This leads us to the solo founder future. Do you think that the one-person software company, in quotes, is going to become the new global standard for entrepreneurs? Or let me put it this way. If building an app is becoming this easy, won't the market just get flooded with junk apps? How does a serious founder start out when the barrier to entry has completely disappeared?
Such a great question. Yeah, I think that the people who are going to succeed at this are going to be the people who realize that the business is not the technology, right? Just because the barrier to entry has never been lower and it's never been easier to build and launch things. People don't care about the technology. They care about the result that the technology gives them, right? So I think the people who are going to end up succeeding and, like you said, turning that single founder business into something that can be scaled and can be maybe even, provide jobs for other people and have, you're just too busy to be able to handle all that stuff, are the people that realize like the customer is first. The problem that is being solved with that solution is the priority, not being married to that technology. I personally, I feel that is going to be one of the biggest separators, kind of like you said, as there's just more and more quote unquote junk being put out there. I think it's those people that focus on those things that are going to succeed.
So those who have the logic of customer first mentality or customer first narrative, and also those who deliver products with results, good quality results. So I could say essentially quality and logic are the new barrier to entry. So in an ocean of noise, the person who solves the problem most clearly and simply is the one who wins. Thank you so much, Dan. This has been an incredibly clear breakdown of the new software reality. This has been a grounded session, and I really appreciate you being on the show to explain all of these. Do you have any final notes for our listeners?
Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me on. You had very, very good thought-provoking questions. I really appreciate all that. No, I would just say, the world is very, very exciting. It's changing very, very fast, and there is a lot of noise out there. Pay attention to the signal. Pay attention to where things are going. There's a famous quote by Wayne Gretzky, one of the, if not the greatest hockey player that ever lived. I'm not a big hockey fan, but he always said, skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it is, right? A puck moves very fast in the game of hockey, as now the world is moving here. So don't chase the noise of everything that's going on. Pay attention to where the quote unquote puck is moving to, and you'll always be at least a step ahead of everyone else.
Interesting. Pay attention to the future. Pay attention to where the trend is going. Pay attention to where the future is going. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I appreciate your view on the future of production, the future of AI, the future of no code in general. Thank you so much for being on the show with us. So that wraps up today's episode of Web3 Unfiltered. A big thank you to Dan Hafner for showing us that you don't need to speak code to build a tech empire. You just need to speak logic, revenue, and quality. So until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and keep building.